that can see.
Where there's thunder, there's lightning. John Nada. Today's episode, we start out by talking about the myth of Sisyphus. Now, without going into too much detail about it, essentially Sisyphus was condemned to roll a rock up a hill repeatedly, and as he would reach the pinnacle of the hill or mountain, the rock would then roll back down on its own weight, and he would have to do it again. And basically, the whole idea of the worst form of punishment would be that in an endeavor of futility and labor. And I see a parallel between this and the path that many of us have undertaken in the past. I talked a little bit about my friend Jay on the program. There's another guy that I work with, and his story kind of parallels Jay's in many ways, except that this particular individual actually is quite the Lothario. He actually does sleep with a lot of women, but what eludes him is a relationship. He very desperately wants to find the quote unquote one and get married and the white picket fence and all that. We'll call this guy L for differentiation purposes. But basically, he does go out on a lot of dates and he does have a lot of sex with a lot of different women, but he feels an emptiness without, really having a connection with these girls or a relationship or, in his words, it never really goes anywhere with these women. I mean, he has sex with them, not all of them, but it never really leads to what he ultimately wants it to lead to, which is marriage. His last date he went out on was a girl he met. I don't remember if he met her online or what, but anyway, I think he met her online, and he went out with her. Everything was great. This guy caught one-itis overnight, pretty much, and as a way of thanking her for the date, he sent her flowers as kind of a thank you. Now, mind you, they'd been on one date. And I don't think they had met before that. And when he was telling me about that at work, I knew what was going to come. I knew it wouldn't be long after that she would suddenly get, become uncomfortable. And he couldn't understand why that turned her off. But indeed it did. And so, again, this guy, in his mind, what he's wanting is a marriage relationship. And I asked him what he thought was so great about marriage. I mean, what is so wonderful about marriage that you just feel like you have to go that route? And he couldn't really give me an answer. And, without really revealing, my own personal thoughts on the matter too in depth, because again, I work with this guy, but I just pointed out the fact that, what you think is so great about marriage is not even really remotely true anymore. There is no more security in marriage. The woman can just up and leave you at any time, any place, for any reason. And on top of that, bankrupt you in the process. Any family that you can be kicked out of was never really your family. And so it's a false sense of security. It's a false sense of ownership of a vagina. It's a false sense of constant access to sex. See, what most men like L are trying to do is break the cycle of date, first date, second date, first date, second date, first date, second date, third date, sex. And repeat, it's a crapshoot for a lot of us. There's a lot of effort and energy put into dating and going out and meeting women and all that simply to engage in intercourse. Whereas, like if things like prostitution and the like of that sort were legalized, most of us would skip with, dispense with the pleasantries and the preliminaries. But what he's wanting to do is break the cycle of that. And it's kind of like, what college is for a lot of people. If you go to college for something that is useful, engineering, computer science, these different things, then it can aid you greatly in life. And that's not to say that other degrees cannot help you in some small ways, but for the most part, a lot of people go to college and end up with crippling debt. But yet we go to college because it goes along with that blue pill programming. We go to college because that's what our parents did. That's what their parents possibly did. Although, going to college is a relatively, new phenomenon. But the point is that we do it because other people did it. And we don't question whether or not it's really going to benefit us or not. The same with marriage. Our parents did it, their parents did it, so on and so forth. But we don't question why we're doing it and what we think we're really going to gain from it. There's nothing wrong with self-interest. We've been told from a very early age, particularly if you're male, that doing what's in your own best interest, doing what is going to benefit you is somehow wrong or evil. When in reality, it's the responsible thing to do. For instance, taking responsibility and interest in my own health is the responsible thing to do in terms of the strain that it puts on, the economy when you have all these people who are on Medicaid and different programs who maybe have not taken care of their own health. And so the taxpayer ends up paying for it. Using a condom is in your own best interest. And again, the taxpayer footing the bill for the many illegitimate children that are born out of these situations where people behave at the base level and don't, take proper precaution or exercise any kind of logical, responsible thought on the matter. Doing what is in your own best interest is not selfish. It's not evil. It's simply the best way to live life. Again, with the blue pill programming, though, and like I said, these different people I've mentioned, these different friends of mine, they are heavily into the blue pill programming. They believe in a unicorn. They hold out hope that somebody out there is going to care about them that's female in the way that their mother cares about them on this unconditional level. And they've not given it up. They continue to hold out hope and believe that eventually they're going to meet that person. They've not taken the red pill. Now, a lot of us have heard this phrase, happy wife, happy life. And again, I go back to what is so great about marriage. Do you think somebody like Alexander the Great or Nikola Tesla had the attitude of happy wife, happy life? No. And look at what they accomplished in their life. Look at what they were able to do. And again, it's this idea that vagina wins out. Vagina is the most important thing. And if you don't believe that, and if you go against what is the script, or you go against what people think that you should care about and think that you should be about, you're shamed and labeled a heretic. Now, there's kind of an interesting idea that I heard recently, and I can't take full credit for it, but it is something that I have thought about before, and that is the rise of the transgendered, so-called male to female transgender. Could it be that these people are changing over from being a male to female, quote unquote transgender, because of the duress that it is of being a male and the emptiness and suffering that a lot of men experience, and is a endemic with male existence and experience, that it's actually a survival mechanism. Because they have shamed men so much, they have shamed masculinity so much that, and just the disposability of the male gender itself, that some men are unable to handle this, and so therefore become transgendered, so-called. Now, another thing I want to address. There's a lot of detractors out and about, and every channel has the detractors. But I know that the listeners here in the Not a Nation, those that listen to this podcast or program or whatever you want to call it, they are the most intelligent audience in MGTOW. Those out in the Not a Nation are the most thinking individuals in the manosphere. And so I'll continue to make videos. I'll continue to discuss my viewpoints. And I appreciate those of you out there in the Not a Nation that do support the channel. Another thing that, I had been kind of kicking around an idea is that women are drawn to evil, it seems like. Not necessarily evil, but we have been taught from cradle to grave that women are these pure creatures. And yet you look at what some of them are willing to do on camera for a few extra bucks. You look at what some of them are willing to do for Chad and realize, I don't know if you've ever heard a private conversation between a group of women, but it can be just as vulgar, if not more so, between them than a group of men. And funny enough, we have a story, Eve and the serpent, where everything, the woman was in paradise of all places. Things could not have been more perfect, and yet still she was unhappy. And she still ate of the fruit and, hamstered in her mind that somehow, things are great right now, but and they're as great as they could possibly be, but I wonder if I could do better. And it seems like women have this drive or desire towards the impure and the profane. And I don't know, maybe that it's just a thought I had, but to quote Rick and Morty, when we talk about relationships, when we talk about love and all those things, and just paraphrasing, that really all love is a chemical reaction in the brain that compels you to mate. Your parents did it, their parents did it, and more than likely, you're going to do it. Break the cycle, and then, of course, he says focus on science. But I say focus on what it is that you're trying to accomplish in your life. Focus on, those things that make you happy. And leave your legacy not as, having a child and doing something that thousands upon thousands of people have done throughout the generations, but make your mark and leave your name because of something you've done and something you are. Now, breaking away from the subject matter for a minute, been able to get back in the gym here the past week or so, and it has been good. It's really helped me deal a lot with, the different stresses of life, and it's good to finally feel focused in on a new goal and a new hobby. And, of course, the only bad part of that is the whole working the jitters out and getting the rust off from, a long period of time away from the gym. That's going to be all the time we have today on the Days of Thunder. And as always, if you don't like the program, don't listen.